Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life.
All right, Industrial Trailblazers, that's Doug Brown. He is the CEO of Business Success Factors. He's passionate, and I mean he is passionate about increasing company and individual sales and profits. He loves helping people break through inner blocks that are holding them back. He loves hockey and, of course, his two daughters. We're going to be diving into in-depth on all those factors because, you know me, I'm all about filling that funnel, bringing in opportunities because it's about you, your success. Doug Brown supports that. Let's get this show on the road.
Welcome to the Industrial Talk Podcast with Scott McKenzie. Scott is a passionate industry professional dedicated to transferring cutting-edge, industry-focused innovations and trends while highlighting the men and women who keep the world moving. So put on your hard hat, grab your work boots, and let's go.
All right, you Industrial Trailblazers, thank you very much for joining the Industrial Talk Podcast. I'm your humble host, Scott McKenzie, and this platform, this show is dedicated to you, your success, and it will do everything in its power to be able to provide content that makes you a success. Doug is no exception. Doug has a background in sales, marketing, branding, strategies associated with that, and I am so glad that he said yes. And his quote is absolutely spot on. Time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's. So let's get this show on the road because it's important that we get into the interview with Doug. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about this. I love the fact that we get an opportunity to be able to always look at other strategies for bringing in sales, marketing, and there's a ton of individuals out there. But man, Doug is a absolute rock star, and like I said, I'm so glad that he is on it, and he will be providing some incredible content for you to be a success. But you know, our role here is let's get going with some tailgates.
Tailgate talk number one.
So I need your help, humbly asking for your help. You can go out to my website and in the contact section, provide names. I'm looking for industrial heroes. Now, these are individuals that have done exceptional stuff with the community, with people. I mean, really a sacrifice. And I really, truly, in my heart of hearts, want to highlight and have those interviews with industrial heroes. So I'm looking for nominations. I'm looking for the opportunity to be able to interview these individuals because their story and their life needs to be highlighted. So I'm asking, and I'm humbly asking, that you help me find industrial heroes because I'll go on out there and I'll do all the stuff that I need to do to be able, but I'm looking for recommendations. And so just go out to my website, industrialtalk.com, and put that contact in there. And I humbly and I just graciously say thank you very much for helping find these industrial heroes.
Number two.
Okay, out there also on the Industrial Talk Industrial Talk website is a poll. It's an industrial insight poll, and it is specific to you. It is designed for you, and it's data that we need for 2019. What are we doing? What are the challenges that industry is dealing with? It's a simple poll. It'll only take you maybe 2 minutes at max. But once you are participating in it, right, you get that data so that you, as a professional, as a company, will see what people are providing. It's really important. Just go out there. No obligation. Take the poll, and then you get free access to the Industrial Academy, and that takes me into number three.
Number three.
Okay, we have formally launched the Industrial Academy. I've been talking about this for the past whatever, and it takes some time to sort of put some meat on the bones and prop up the walls and all that good stuff, but the Industrial Academy is out there. So if you take that poll, you get free access to the digital branding course that I have out there at the Industrial Academy. And now what that means is that you get to see some of the stuff that I do. And I'll, let's put it this way. This has been an opportunity for me to grow this whole podcast, digital stuff. And I've made good decisions. I've made bad decisions. I've had good experience and really painful ones. But I'm here to tell you in that course, I'll give you the sort of the baseline and the foundation of what I think you can do as an industrial person, as an industrial company, to get your digital branding moving forward consistently. So just go out there, take that course, but you got to go through the poll. Take that poll, and then now you get the poll information and you get that digital course. You marry them together, boom, you're a rock star. All fantastic.
Number 4.
Can you believe it? I got number 4. Jeez. Okay, I am also setting up a program called Industrial Groundbreakers or Industrial Trailblazers, either or. I haven't really settled on it. It is an on-site program here in Louisiana, Mandeville area, and it is specific to you, the professional, and we're going to be covering leadership. We're going to be covering sales and marketing, of course, because that's what I'm all about, purpose, just a number of topics, and so please be prepared and start looking for that. And I got one more.
Number 5.
Can't believe we got number. Oh, yeah. I'm all about food, so I'm going to be submitting my recipe. Yes, about turkey and sausage gumbo. It is that season. Turkey and sausage gumbo. Now, I think if you've never had gumbo, you need to have this gumbo. If you've had gumbo, you need to have this gumbo. But I'm going to be opening it up to all you industrial professionals out there, and I think I want to create a little competition into recipes and food and highlight you as a professional. But, you know, I'm all about food. So be prepared for that one. That is industrial approved food. And now finally, I don't have another one for this, but I took third place in this physique competition. And if you're out there on my YouTube channel, you'll see it hanging up, the big old swag medal right there. Anyway, there it is right there. Third place. You know what happened after I did all of that? I ate like there was no tomorrow. If that food was not nailed down, if that food was, it was in my mouth, and I went to the store, I went to the cookie aisle, and I just scooped out as much of the cookies as I possibly can for 1 week. Now I'm back into eating right and go working out and all that fun stuff. So anyway, it was a lot of fun. It was a unique experience, but there it is. Third place. Ta-da. Okay, now let's get on with the interview right now. This is Doug Brown. Once again, he is a busy man. He said yes. And I am so thankful. And without, you don't want to hear me. I think we just get right into the interview. So thank you very much once again for joining the Industrial Talk podcast. Here's Doug Brown. He is the CEO of Business Success Factors. Enjoy. All right, welcome to the Industrial Talk podcast. I've got an incredible gentleman on the horn right now. His name is Doug Brown, and Doug, we've been playing tag for, I don't know, it seems like years. No, it's been months. And now I got you on the Industrial Talk podcast, and you listeners out there, take notes because this is going to be a barn burner. How you doing, Doug?
I'm doing fantastic, Scott. Thank you very much for asking, and yeah. I'm assuming you're doing the same.
It's funny because you got on the horn, and it's so fun because you're saying, "Hey man, I'm all busy. I'm doing this and that," and even I'm getting all jacked because I'm thinking, "Oh my gosh, man, this is exciting stuff," and I'm getting excited. And I really appreciate your time because I know that you're really busy.
Well, I appreciate you having me on the show, and we make time for those things that are a priority, and you were wonderful,
baby.
Being consistent with me, and
I'm a priority. And I called you when we were out and about, and I said, I can't make it because I'm just not putting the time. Anyway, you've been so gracious, and I really appreciate it. So for the listeners out there, let's give them a little background and that piece of information, Doug, that is so unique to you. And I got the idea, but go. You tell the listeners that's something unique about you.
Well, I think the unique thing really about me is I'm not that unique. However, I also have been working on my craft now for well over 45 years. And so what I work on human dynamics and conversational sales. How do you sell and convert at a higher level with minimizing that rejection and selling human to human versus trying to, sell a title? And so I think that makes me unique because I blend the combination of the human self with sales. So we unlock human potential in the sales process, and salespeople, companies, sales processes, sales systems are all put together, but they're put together with meaning that people relate to. So that's been really my unique proposition on for most people anyways.
Well, I got to tell you, here in the Industrial Talk podcast, for me personally, this has been a platform that I've constantly refer back to. How do you market? How do you brand? How do you sell? How do you improve that revenue, right? And profit? And you just fit right in there. And I think that your story is going to be incredible to tell. Now, you're out there on LinkedIn, and I'm looking at your stat card out there, your professional stat card. And you've been a part of the Business Success Factor for, looks like 5 years plus, close to 6 years.
Right.
How come you started that company?
I started this company actually to help salespeople, help people selling, help business owners. The challenge, because prior to this, I've owned a telecommunications consulting and auditing company as well. Still own that today. But prior to that, or even in tandem, I was fortunate enough to be able to become a president of training and sales for a man named Tony Robbins and Chet Holmes, who ran a couple of business companies. So during that tenure,
you just sort of brushed over something that's very near and dear to my heart. That's Tony. Listen out there. That's Tony Robbins. You know the guy, and Chet Holmes. And if you have an XM radio, you've heard Chet Holmes. Go ahead.
Yeah, we were all over that.
Like I'm ugly, you were on XM, and it's Sirius XM. That's for sure.
Yeah, Sirius XM. I mean, we were driving 1,000 to 3,000 leads a week on radio alone, and I was running all of that. I was running the front end sales teams for them. I was running their trainers, their presenters. I was co-running coaching, helping in their consulting divisions, and I really got immersed. And one of the things that kept coming back over and over and over to me were business owners, telling me their greatest pains, and their number one greatest pain is they wanted to make more sales. They wanted to make better quality sales. They wanted better quality people. They wanted better quality clients. They wanted to work easier. Many of them were, like on a death march within their business. So what I started doing is listening to this over and over. And I said, there has to be a better way to be able to train people. Not that we weren't doing a great job at what we were doing at Chet Holmes International or Business Breakthroughs International, which were the two companies that I was running with them. We were doing a great job, but there was always this one thing that it came back to, that the owners wanted to prematurely fire their staff, primarily the salespeople. And so I would start digging in, asking, how are you tracking this? What are you basing this on? And ultimately it came down to that most of the time the company wasn't training their people or holding their people accountable or working on the human issues that were relating to sales. They were trying to just give them skills training, and skills training alone will increase sales. But when you combine that with what's holding up the individual, then once you release that part of it, all of a sudden sales just start skyrocketing. And then when you put a system around that.
Well, I'm going to interrupt you. You say having employees feel comfortable with what?
Being in their own skin, knowing they're good enough, knowing that they're good enough to handle what the task is in front of them, and allowing them to be themselves and be able to sell in a systematic process, but really feeling congruent with what they're doing. Not just, hey, I believe in what I'm selling. That's one component of it, but I believe in what I'm selling. And, I'm the guy who should be selling this. I'm the gal who should be selling this. And the reasons behind that are X, Y, and Z. Once they understand that component of it, they actually become themselves, and people buy from people, not titles. We just assign titles, right? So the more that they can relate to humans and the more they know how to communicate with humans, if you do this correctly, you don't even need a presentation in your sales process, because they're buying from you before you even get to the presentation component of it most of the time.
Okay, so I'm going to go down that road. I live in Realville. You come into an organization and you see that organization is driven by a specific culture. That culture has been around for many years, just because it doesn't happen overnight. And then you're saying, okay, I'm going to come on in and I'm going to make you feel good in your skin. What are those steps? How do you come into an organization, and listen up, industrial companies, this is good stuff. How do you come into an organization and say, okay, me, owner, I'm frustrated. My pain is like, I just need better sales. I want to expand my market. I want to do whatever the typical stuff. What do you do, Doug?
First thing we do is we have a conversation, and then we assess what's going on. So there's multiple ways of assessing it, but typically what we do is we through the power of questioning, we assess where are they stuck, where are the blind spots. Every single company out there has a blind spot. What's a blind spot?
Yeah.
Something you can't see, right? So in many cases, those blind spots are caught up in the system or the lack of a system that promotes sales. So one blind spot for many companies, especially if they're a larger company, is their marketing and sales processes are not congruent. They're not generating sales quality ready leads through their marketing. They're generating marketing leads or just the lead. So once we make that congruence happen, Scott, what ends up happening is the conversion rate and the close rate all go up.
So because I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, Doug, give me an example of how my marketing is out of kilter with my sales. Give me an example of that.
Well, so for example, I'll give you what actually was happening with Chet Holmes' company at the beginning when I first got there.
Wow, there you go, man. That's a great example.
Yeah, so I was able to take their close rate on their trainings, and we were able to up it. It was 17.8%. In 4 months, it was 43.2%.
Wow.
And the way that I did this was I looked at all of the information coming in. So we used to drive radio ads into a team, and then we would put them on a paid training. We call it a masterclass training. And so that message was very good to getting people onto that particular training. The challenge was this, that different size companies have different needs. And so the marketing was hitting the need and getting them excited. But when it came to actually investing in what they needed to invest, the sales process was slightly askew. So the sales process was then trying to sell companies who were smaller. How do you put systematic processes and work on your operations so you can scale? And so even though they got a lot out of the training and they found a lot, they weren't actually plunking down their money to actually continue to go forward. In fact, when I ran the numbers on that audience alone, we had less than a 3% conversion rate on that specific audience that was under 500,000. And at that time, under $1 million was about 70% of the leads coming in. So it was a huge segment of that process coming in. And so what I did is I retooled the sales pitch, and then I retooled the marketing pitch so that, look, as a smaller company, your primary job, your number one job is to make sales. And so when we changed that marketing on the front end slightly, it wasn't radical, it was slight changes. And then what we did is we had a different script for those who were underneath 700,000, 500,000 in that area. We had a different script which drove them into the process of now when we brought them into the training that they're going to learn how to work easier. So they're going to work smarter, not harder. They're going to have better marketing. They're going to have better sales processes. And they're going to go for better quality clients because this is how we rapidly can increase their process. You know, if we can get them better quality clients, they work smarter right then and there because they have less hassles, right? So it's all about that point. Now, remember, we had less than a 3% conversion. That conversion went from 3% in the first couple of months to over 60%.
And that's just in a few months?
Yeah. So we added in the first couple of months.
What's the secret sauce? That's a tremendous improvement. That's tremendous.
Yeah, and you know, and it added.
What tweak did you hit? I mean, it's like the Holy Grail. Come on.
Well, in that case, it really kind of was because, you know, we started adding $1.5 million a month to the bottom line, right? So I mean, in revenue. So it was kind of like what happened there, and this happens when you don't have to have a big company. These are smaller companies, right? And what was more important is the smaller companies now were getting really strong results because that marketing and sales message was congruent with where they needed to be and what their pain points were and what they wanted to solve. So we actually segmented. Segmentation is a huge component that a lot of companies miss. They'll just have leads coming in and they're not segmenting the leads. They're not.
Okay. Just talk to me like I'm a third grader here. clarify and define segmentation.
So segmentation is a form of basically putting things into different buckets.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say, I don't know, take anything. In the case of this, anything underneath $500,000 needed to go into a more sales-centric plan, sales-centric training. And the messaging was changed for that. The sales process was changed for that. Anything over $1 million, they needed sales, but they now started to be able to put in more processes into their company. So we would slightly change. So we would have bucket 1, bucket 2 for the next one of $1 million and above. When we hit about 4 million to 5 million, now we needed to start putting different types of processes in the company. And the company still wanted to grow sales, but the company actually wanted now to scale. And so we would now slightly change the message. So we would have bucket 3 for the scalers. Once they were already in a scaling process, they wanted to significantly maybe double their sales. We had another bucket for that. And we had 4 different messages going on that had 4 different congruent sales processes. Now, these weren't radically different, but they were slightly different. So it would be the difference, those of us who are, dealing with another human being, you can say certain things from a man to a man. Scott, you and I could get along in a certain way, but we couldn't say the same things to a female audience. So we would slightly alter the message and the sales process because of the female audience. It's not being sexist. It's just that they want something different in life than generally someone else. And so we're going to bucketize those down, if you will. And then we would craft a message and a sales process and the training component for that particular audience. Just as if we were training orthodontist or periodontist, or we were training cosmetic surgeons in the dental industry, they're going to want or general dentistry, they're going to want a slightly different message.
So I want to make sure that you guys got that out there, industrial listeners. It sounds like to me, and you could pop in anytime, Doug, that we've got to, as industrial professionals, as industrial company owners, align as much as we possibly can, have that meaningful conversation between the marketing aspects and your sales and aligning those correctly, right? And then through segmentation, being able to modify that sales process and be able to communicate well with those segmented items, correct?
Absolutely. It's all about 2 things in the beginning. Positioning, number 1. And then, as you said, in the sales process, alignment. Part of the alignment process is the segmentation process. So you're aligning with the client's wants, needs, desires, fears, aspirations, ability to pay, willingness to pay. So you're segmenting these all down into that. And then so when you're salespeople, or if you're the owner of the company and you're doing the sales, when you're having that sales conversation, notice I didn't say you're selling them, you're having a sales conversation, or what I call a conversion conversation. You are now talking to them about the things that matter to them. So it increases the speed of closure in the sale. It also increases the percentage of closure in the sale because you're now dealing with what we would call a sales qualified lead.
Wow. Hey, Doug, we're going to be breaking. Guys, we're listening to Doug Brown. He is the founder of Business Success Factors. He's dropping some really great gems on us from a sales and marketing perspective. And if you're an industrial professional or a company, industrial company, you need to be listening to this podcast because I guarantee you, it'll make you better. So hang tight. Thank you very much for joining the Industrial Talk Podcast. We will be right back.
You're listening to the Industrial Talk Podcast Network.
All right, the Industrial Talk Podcast has a new sponsor by the name of ASG Energy. Now, this company helps private companies as well as public organizations of all sizes reduce energy costs through the use of commercial LED lighting technology and electrical services. Now, you know me. I'm a big fan of LED just because, well, first off, I don't have to change the lights, but on a commercial basis, oh my gosh, the energy savings is phenomenal. The reduction in maintenance costs, phenomenal. Return on investment, quick, it's incredible. And the environmental benefits, self-explanatory. So You have any questions about LED commercial lighting? You need to check out my friends at ASG Energy, LLC.com. Find out more because they know what they're doing. So check them out. All right, welcome back to the Industrial Talk Podcast. So glad that you have joined us. We're talking to Doug. Doug is really discussing a lot about the sales, what we need to do, and offline when we were doing when the commercial was happening, Doug and I sort of chit-chatted a little bit about it, and I had said, Doug, where's the future going, right? What do we need to sort of begin to adapt as industrial professionals, as industrial companies? You know, we have this one way of doing it, and one way of been doing it for many, many years. Where are we going? What do we need to do? How do we adapt? Where do you see the future going, Doug?
Well, as it relates to sales, Scott, I see the top-down sales processes that have been taught throughout, a long period of time. Those are eroding and going away.
Give me an example of a top-down selling process.
It's crushing the objection, right? So somebody comes in, they say, I think your price is too high, or I think that, that's too much money. And a top-down sales process would teach somebody to repeat back and go, compared to what? Your price is too high compared to what? Right?
Right.
What are you comparing this to? Right? And it's more of a combative type of process versus a nurturing process, right? I mean, the whole idea in sales,
I'm sorry, I've got to jump in. Yeah, industrial people being nurturing. Put that on a doggone bumper sticker. Nurturing industrial professional. You heard it here first, industrialtalk.com.
Yeah. A lot of people confuse meek, the word meek, with weak. And so, us to be meek, I mean, I'll give you an example because some people might be going, well, what's the difference, right? I mean, somebody who's studied martial arts who's a master, their whole primary focus for studying is so they don't have to fight.
Yeah.
Right. And so they will do anything and everything they can to avoid a fight. Now, some people would view that as a weakness. Well, that's okay. But when you engage with that martial arts master after 30 years of training, you'll find out they're not weak at all. In fact, you're going to find out the total opposite, right? So
real quick too.
Yeah. So the same in sales. I mean, a lot of people, have been brought up in a lot of old sales technology where it was like, listen, you want to crush objections. You want to make a sale at any cost. You win, they lose. And those games are going to die because the internet has actually changed the whole playing field. See, way back when, one could play those games in sales because they had the information. The salesperson selling had the information. And the buyer didn't have as much or enough information in the form of education. So the salesperson could use those points of leverage against the buyer and confuse and trick the buyer. But now with the click of a button, that buyer becomes more educated than the salesperson in many cases. Just by studying online for 5 or 10 minutes, right? Yeah. The old adage of, used to go into the car dealership and the car dealers could play all kinds of card games. Well, now you don't even need a card. You can buy 70% plus of the leads that come into car dealers today come online first.
Isn't that interesting? You're absolutely right. And I never really thought about that because everything, and I'll be as bold as I can be. Everything's out there on the World Wide Web. I mean, I can change a spark plug in a whatever. There it is. There's the video. It's there. It's got the information, and it's free of, and it's at my fingertips. And so all you're saying is that, hey, you're not going into a company and say, hey, I got some advantages on you. Oh, no. They have numbers, and they know exactly what's going on. So you're going to have to change your strategy and recognize that industrial person, industrial company. Okay, go ahead. Continue. I keep on interrupting you.
No, it's exactly right. The strategy is going to have to change and the application of the tactics in which they employ. Otherwise, what ends up happening is they're going to hear more no's more often. Because here's the concept. Unless they have a specific niche product that no one else has, they have competitors. Yep. And people want to buy from somebody who treats them like a human being versus just a sale. We're not selling to CEOs, CFOs, directors. We're not selling to titles. We're selling to people who have wants, needs, desires, fears, right? And unless they're taking into account the human percentage of this component, like i.e., hey, look, I'm a buyer for procurement, and my biggest fear is I'm going to make a buying decision that's going to compromise my job, so I have to go home and tell my wife or my husband or my significant other, listen, I just lost my job and we're going to have to cut back on the child's education. Right?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's that fast. You're right.
Not a good day, right?
No,
and so what ends up happening is when people do top-down selling and everybody else is doing the same, what ends up happening is the components which actually they take into consideration in order of priority, the amount of value, the amount of service, and the amount of selection. Those three are the top three. 76% of a buying decision is made off their perception of value and service.
Okay, go. I want you to slow down. Let's get that point. Say that again.
So 76% of the human buying decision is really about value and service. And that value is what they deem it to be, and the service is what they deem it to be. Price is part of value. The price perception is part of the value proposition. Service can be anything they deem it to be. If they want 24/7 access to a technical support person and you don't have it as your company selling, then your service perception will drop. As value and service drops, it reverts to the bottom two criteria, which are price and convenience, which, all things being equal, make up about 13% of the whole sales process. However, if the value is not there, and they're doing top-down selling, what will happen is price will come up as a bigger objection. It'll come up as a bigger perception because that, to them, now will be the value.
And I'm telling you right now, in the industrial market, there's a drive to monetize or commoditize everything. Commoditized. If it's a seal, a mechanical seal, I'm buying price.
Right.
I'm buying, and it's and that's the culture that exists today within the. Service is important. Don't get me wrong. If something breaks down and I don't have the part there the next hour or whatever, yeah, it's a big deal. But everything drives to the commoditization of that price.
Until you position at a human-to-human fashion and you're positioned as the expert, because we all want to buy from an expert and we will pay more for that relationship.
Very
this
good
is
point.
This is why the old statement, like, nobody got fired for buying from IBM, right? Because we know buying from IBM in those days, especially, they were going to be more money. We know buying from Apple, they're typically going to be more money than going out and buying a PC from, a Windows-based type PC. Why do companies do that? Because of that value perception. And so, why do they buy service plans? Because they want those service plans to be part of the service. They don't want to worry. They don't want to be concerned. And what a lot of people do is they're trying to just make a sale versus trying to make a sale with another human being in a win-win fashion. And this is where sales is going. It's not where sales might go. It's already going there. And so those who don't understand that conversational ability in sales are going to be commoditized. It's that simple, because people want to buy from people that they trust, they respect, and preferably they like. And they will pay more money. And everyone that is listening on this line in some form, fashion, has bought something and paid a little bit more money or a lot more money for that same thing that they could have got somewhere else. And it doesn't matter if you go into a restaurant and you overpaid for the meal, right? Compared to where you could have gone down the street and got the meal, same type of meal, but it's that experience that people are paying for. So in the restaurant, that's the value perception. And, and we have to take into consideration the human connection. The sales process, Scott, is very, very straightforward. We're going to generate a lead to drive it to a qualified or disqualified lead. We are then going to, if qualified, convert that lead. We are then going to then service that lead. And in the process of that, we want to spawn new clients, i.e. referrals, i.e. endorsements, testimonials, and we want to loop back and get that whole process to regenerate itself over and over again. And if you do this right, you'll convert more just from your referrals. You can get referrals to be a major component of your actual base. And, referrals close quicker, faster, easier, if you will. They will close generally for higher priced orders. and more profit, because there's that trust factor built right in, and that commoditization begins to go out the window.
Okay, so let's take a hypothetical here.
Sure.
I've owned a company. It's a industrial maintenance company. I've run another terminal company. I was president of that. And everything, from my perspective, everything, and I've lived through this, is sales. It's just sales. And you get to the point where you're constantly looking at sales. In the industrial market today, Doug, we need to, this whole conversational, this position yourself as an expert doesn't happen overnight. And in fact, I think that we have been so ingrained within this industry. The culture of our industry is just, once again, top-down sales. But we just, let's go play golf. Let's go fishing, that type of stuff.
Sure.
How in the industrial world, where do we go? What do we do? How do you, recognizing the dynamics of this market?
So the first thing in all the sales processes is you've got to get them into what I call yes states. The whole process through sales is about creating micro commitments of yes states. So everything you do, you've got to get them to say yes, yes. Now, whether they're saying that out loud or in their head, you want to get that process. So people buy for buying what I call buying confidence. They're confident that they're making the right purchase for them. That's the reason they buy, they pull the trigger on the sale. Now, when they're in fear, imagine two pivots on each, a pivot in the middle and an arm going across. On one side of the arm, you have confidence. On the other side of the arm, you have fear or pain. Well, anything that is said throughout that process has to make that pivot go up on the confidence level and down on the fear or pain level. Now, you can push pain during a sale. That's a different conversation to get them to move to the confidence. But imagine in the middle of that pivot has a point on it where people make a really big, challenging decision, and they don't really realize what they're doing is they're trying to push them immediately from pain to confidence. But what they're forgetting is they have to get them to the middle of that pivot. And the middle of that pivot is neutral.
And that your teeter-totter,
there you go,
stays level. And it's like you said, it's neutral. It's where the things just sort of stays level.
You got to get it neutral first, and then you got to let the fear side drop and the buying confidence side go up.
Interesting.
And the way you do that is through the power of questioning. And those power of questioning, especially open-ended questions where you can get people to talk. So you're building rapport and you're bonding with these people all the way through. And the more you can get them to think, yes, this person is the person I want to do business with. Yes, this makes sense. Yes, that makes sense. The more that happens, that buying confidence goes up. One of the quickest ways of doing it in the industrial space is to position as an expert, but you position as an expert quickly by using what we call market data.
Yes, market data. Yes.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, because the market data sways the imagination. It positions somebody as an expert before they even start pitching the process.
So you just sort of dovetail with market data. It's just like, yeah. Did you know 27% believed X, Y, Z, and you're that type of stuff?
Yeah, that's part of it, as long as it's backed up by credible sources. So, when I'm talking to people about sales training, I'll put it into a state of something of this nature. Out of 10 people that you talk to or your sales team talks to, how many of them are followed up with at least 10 or more times over the next 10 weeks?
Yeah.
0 to 10. How many of your current clients have been touched at least once a month over the next blah, blah, personal phone calls? How many of your clients that have bought something but they're dormant are touched, right? And we'll get these three points. So in other words, how's your follow-up rate? Because 50% of salespeople never follow up with a lead once. Only 13% of salespeople ever follow up with a lead more than 3 times. But statistics clearly show that the average sale on a cold lead takes 5 to 8, sometimes 12 touches to actually get it to the place where they're willing to even entertain talking about it and saying yes. So if it's not going to the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh touch, this is where a lot of money's dropping out of the funnel. This is where profit's dropping out of the funnel because that lead cost has been paid for, and all you have to do is monetize it.
And they just give up. They keep on saying no. I don't like I don't like the sound of no.
Well, exactly. And the interesting thing is they give up, but their competition is now coming in on the fourth, fifth, sixth touch.
Yes, I see it. You're right. They just dumped it. They bogarted your doggone 3 touches, and they're coming in at the 4th, 5th, and 6th touch. They made their efforts more efficient.
Absolutely, because what's happened is company A that gave up is actually making it. They're framing and they're prepping the client to actually buy for company B or company C who comes in as the competitor.
I love it. Hey, we're going to have to take a break right now. We're talking to Doug Brown. He's dropping truth bombs right now, you industrial professional out there. We're talking about positioning yourself as an expert. We're talking about follow-up. Do not stop with following up. 5, 8, sometimes 12 to get to that point where that potential customer will say yes. So you got to listen to this guy. You got to follow up. You got to find him out on LinkedIn. So hang tight. We're going to wrap this show up on the next side. So thank you very much for joining the Industrial Talk podcast. As always, please stay tuned. Hey, once again, this is Scott McKenzie with Industrial Talk. If you like what you're listening to, please feel free to sign up for the free podcast as well as the blogs. I'll try to keep it all relevant to your business and hopefully be able to provide some insight into what we do at Industrial Talk and what you do as a professional. Hope to see you soon. Thank you. All right, welcome back. We're talking truth bombs here with Doug Brown. You know, I got to tell you, Doug, I've been enjoying this conversation. Founder of Business Success Factors and you, industrial professional, as well as that company owner that's in the industrial space. I highly recommend this because things are changing. The internet's not going away. And so you're going to have to learn to adapt. You're going to have to learn to be able to figure this out. Or your competition's going to do it, and you're going to be left behind, and we don't want that to happen. So, Doug, you brought up a stat that was brought to you by HubSpot. Why don't you share with everybody that sort of interesting stat?
I do a lot of research, right? Because again, data marketing is part of what I invoke as well. And so, I saw a stat published by HubSpot which showed that a 10% minimum increase is achieved when people are in consistent training. So when salespeople or are in consistent training, they will outsell 10% at a minimum higher conversion than people who are not training on a consistent basis. But the challenge is that many companies won't invest in that process because they think, well, geez, if I'm, doing that, it's kind of an expense on the books. But however, I've seen statistic after statistics that are much higher than this 10%. I remember that there was a study that was published by Personal Public Management, which is a group who studies this, and they found that highly regarded studies in other avenues as well as their studies showed that training will increase people's conversion. But when you add coaching to that training, you can get as much as a 400% increase in the results.
Oh, jeez.
Right. So
that's great value, for lack of a better term. That's value.
Yeah, it's but the challenge with most people is they're not investing in themselves. The greatest investment that one can make is in their own selves, as well as companies investing in their people. This is not to frame just what I'm doing, Scott. It's true what happens in all industries, especially in the industrial space, because I've worked with a lot of people in the industrial space. And it never ceases to amaze me. We take an underperforming salesperson and we put them into a systematic training on how to sell. And all of a sudden they go from 19th in the pecking order to number 2 within a 4-6 month period. And people will wonder what happened to Mary or what happened to Dave, right? And it's just because they have a sales system. See, here the bottom line is this: the buyer has a system, or your company has a sales system. And if the company doesn't have a sales system that the salesperson's following that is effective, then the buyer system is going to win out. And the buyer system is this: I want to buy at the most economical play I can buy, at the most convenient play I can buy. That's their system. And most of the time, salespeople are not to be trusted. So unless that salesperson system is able to demonstrate the value and the service and high rapport, which is to overcome, if you will, or at least mitigate that buyer system, the buyer system will prevail. And that's what happens in a lot of the industrial space. And that's why they get commoditized.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. You're speaking truth, my friend. You're speaking truth. Now, for your listeners out there, when he started to talk a little bit about that stat, that HubSpot is a email marketing CRM. That's a customer relations management system out there that creates, it gives it tremendous flexibility and automation, touch point, follow-up, everything that you could possibly imagine. So that stat is real because HubSpot is a real company. Now, Doug, I hate to call it quits, but I have to call it quits. But how do people get a hold of you? And by the way, I'm going to back up a little bit. Everybody out there, I sent my sales force to a sales training event out there, spent a lot of money. You know what I did wrong? I didn't follow up. I didn't change the culture. And Doug here talks about, and he recognizes that the necessity and the ability to be able to provide that training, but to be able to follow it over a period of time, that's results. That's ROI. So if you're on the fence about, well, do I need to do some sales training? It's ROI. It's bottom line value, and it improves your business revenue, margin, whatever you want to do, and makes people far more passionate about your business. So, Doug, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, they can always go to my website, which is businesssuccessfactors.com. They can send me an email directly to Doug, D-O-U-G, at businesssuccessfactors.com.
And that's factors with an S.
With an S. And the reason that the S is there is it's not one factor, it's multiple factors that make your business successful.
There you go, man. Remember that out there. Good.
Yeah. And so, I'm pretty good about getting back to people. If I'm not readily available, one of my assistants will get back, and then, we can have a conversation.
You're also out on LinkedIn, and you're Doug Brown 123, by the way.
Yes, I am.
So Doug Brown 123, because Doug Brown, I would imagine, is a fairly common name out there on LinkedIn, right? It
very much is. I mean, it's a very common name across the world in a lot of ways. So sometimes I say my name's Doug Brown. People go, yeah, really? Who are you? You're really James Smith, right? Yeah. So
if there's a beef out there on these social platforms, it's a fact that when you come across a Doug Brown, you just realize your stomach sinks a little bit, and you're going, okay, I'm gonna have to find this gem. I'm gonna have to do a little mining right now. I mean.
Those people who still use phones, they could always call at area code 603-595-0303, and I'm extension 701. So the bottom line is this: that, oh, by the way, Scott, you know why I have the 123 in my name?
I don't know. It makes it easier to find Doug Brown.
That 123 actually came about because, I'm a salesperson, and I've been usually a top performer in most companies. And I started studying this. And the reality is that salespeople, they don't want to do any more than 3 moves to make something happen.
No way.
Yeah.
Another parting truth bomb. My gosh, that's good, man.
Right. So when you're designing your sales system, those of you who have companies or want to design a system, make it so there's no more, maximum 3 moves that the salesperson has to achieve. And if you do that, that salesperson will do that much more often because they're looking for an ROI. They got to do 8 moves. It slows them down. And then they're like, hey, I can't make 5 calls. Yeah. Right. So they're not going to do it.
It's good stuff, my friend.
That's how it came about.
I love it. All right. Well, let me see. I just want one last thing. I see that because I'm all about education, right? And I'm big into books. And I know that you're getting a book getting ready to be released, because I think that as I look behind me, I don't have one of you, but you said that you're going to get a book, right?
I am. I actually have written several books, and
I don't see any behind me that says Doug Brown on there.
No. See, I've been the guy behind the scenes for a lot of these people for many, many, many years, right? So I really, and then I decided to step out and claim my space through the urging of a lot of people. And so I'm grateful to them. And so I wanted to write a book that was specifically on a subject matter. Like I didn't want to bring out just a generalized, how do you create sales systems in your business? A lot of books out there that will teach that type of thing. So I decided to write about one of the biggest pain points that salespeople have, other than how to get leads. How do you handle objections? What is the psychology? What is the human dynamics behind why objections form, how they form? Because they form way back in our childhood. A lot of people don't realize this.
Interesting.
So I wrote a book specifically on how to resolve objections without crushing your prospect in the prospective process.
That top-down approach that we in the industrial world that really try to employ.
Yeah, absolutely. So that book will be coming out. It's actually right now with a publisher, and the publisher's putting their final touches on it. If somebody wants access to the book, just send me an email and say, hey, when the book comes out, you'll be one of the first pre-releases, and we'll do something special for you on the book.
Fantastic.
They're your listeners.
Doug, thank you very much. Really appreciate your time, energy, effort, and your wisdom. Big time for the Industrial Talk listeners. And once again, I'm going to be summarizing all of this up, sticking it out on industrialtalk.com. You will have every bit of information on how to get a hold of Doug, his email, his phone, his LinkedIn, his website. And I highly recommend that you take him up on his offer to get that book, because I know that when I hear rejection, I run away. Is that part of my childhood there, Doug? Running away?
It very much could be. We could set up a coaching session together, and I can figure that out for you.
Fantastic, my friend. Thank you very much. And thank you for joining the Industrial Talk podcast. We will be right back.
You're listening to the Industrial Talk Podcast Network.
All right, that was Doug Brown. Thank you very much, Doug, for joining the Industrial Talk podcast. I know that I'm passionate about sales, marketing, branding. You brought a lot of truth to that. I enjoyed that quite a bit. Thank you very much. Because you are a busy man, thank you for sharing with the Industrial Talk listeners. And also, remember, the best investment is the investment in yourself. Come to the Industrial Talk podcast. We're going to continue to try to provide as much content as we possibly can. And that segues into the Industrial Academy. Industrial Academy is out there. Take that poll, that industrial poll, click, boom, free access to it. You get to learn a lot more about that digital marketing, which is very important. And then finally, Industrial Heroes, right there. Anybody that provides me with an Industrial Heroes gets this wonderful hat, swag, Industrial Talk swag. So anyway, thank you very much. Thank you for participating in the Industrial Talk podcast. You can get a hold of me out at, of course, the website, industrialtalk.com. I've got a Facebook account, Industrial Talk. I've got LinkedIn out there, both my personal, Scott McKenzie, and my company, Industrial Talk, Twitter, Instagram, and a YouTube channel, because this is where this is going to be too. So thank you very much. Have a great day. Be safe as always, and we will be back.